think I lost connectedness, so I'm trying this again. I could see the numbers dropping off, so it looked like I had lost everyone. Just going to go to my Facebook page and tell people. And I don't know if anyone's joined me. Okay, so at least one person has rejoined us. My mother. Sorry, my screen went black, and I think there was no video showing, and then I could see the numbers dropping off, so I knew that there was some issue with your ability to see me. I'll wait a minute or two and see if people come back. If not, I will just I'll just do the recording of this. So I don't know where you lost me. We were talking about having an emergency plan to evacuate your home, making sure that children knew how to call 911, that they know how to exit their room in the event of a fire or anything like that. Making sure you have copies of all your important documents, ideally in the cloud, including your utility information, insurance information, all that kind of stuff. You're going to need that if you have to leave your home and there's some kind of destruction that happens. And also taking an inventory of your home. So if you have a fire, you're not going to know you're not going to remember anything, how many books you had, all that sort of stuff. So take an inventory, either write it down, take pictures, take a video to establish what the things are in your home that you need to replace later on. It's a good idea to do this periodically because if you or a loved one passes away, we need that information. And now's a good time to look at your insurance limits. What are your deductibles? What are the things that are excluded? I know when we had a fire, we were surprised about some of the things that weren't covered in the way that we thought that they were. Particularly do this if you run a home-based business, if you farm, and if you have any unique items, collections, anything like that. But even for regular people, you'll be surprised. Your contents insurance is probably not as much as you would need to actually replace everything. Think about if you have 20 pairs of underwear, how much does a brand new pair of underwear cost? Things cost a lot more to replace than you think. If you have to leave your home, and you don't have time to grab your medications, your emergency file should have a list of the medications that everyone takes and the dosage. The pharmacy that you use might not be open. They might not be able to fax over or email over the information. If you have a list of what medications everyone takes, you've got somewhere to start, especially if you're going to get medical treatment. I talked already about having a fire extinguisher, so have a fire extinguisher, make sure everybody knows how to use it, make sure everybody knows where it is. You may want to have an overdose kit in case there's a medical emergency in your home or someone near your home has a medical emergency relating to an overdose. A basic first aid kit is a good idea, making sure people are generally trained in CPR or some sort of emergency medical training. I mean, there's obviously all kinds of courses, but if you can't do a course, just the basic like recovery positions and don't move somebody if they need medical attention, that kind of stuff. The other things that you need to know is, where's your water shut off? Where's your gas shut off? Where's your electrical box? If there's some sort of flood happening, and if you've ever watched a home renovation show, you'll know that you need to know where the water shut off is when you're doing renovations. Know where all that stuff is. I already mentioned keeping your car, not empty. It doesn't need to be full of gas, but don't leave your car empty because you may not be able to get gas when you need it. The other thing is have a little bit of extra cash. I don't think you need to have wads of cash, but 20, 30 bucks at least. So you can, in an emergency, buy some food or gas. But if any of these things happen, you're going to need credit. If you have a fire, you'll need to replace everything in your home. The insurance company doesn't often give you money in advance. You have to buy it and then get reimbursed. If you have to evacuate, these things cost money. So I would have a credit card that is actually for emergencies only. Have access to credit so that you can use it in the event of an emergency. You don't want to be in a situation where you're desperate and you don't have the money to do the thing you need to do to save your family. So definitely make sure that you have some access to credit. Even if it's covered, you're probably going to need money in the immediate aftermath. So that's sort of something happens to your home. You have to leave your home, evacuate your home, and you may not come back. So those are some of the things. I will try and splice together the videos and post them later on. So the next thing is you're not able to leave your home. You're not able to leave your home for a period of time because of some sort of an emergency. Generally, the recommendation is that you have enough food or water and medication to last 72 hours. I personally don't have an actual emergency kit, but I do keep tabs on how much food we have in our pantry and in our freezer, and sort of, do we have enough to feed ourselves? I don't really keep water, but I know whenever there's, there's talk of another ice storm coming or something occasionally in the winter, I do look around and I do start to fill up all of our water bottles and make sure that we've got some water in case there's some reason where we're not able to get water. I have a wind-up radio in the event of a major disaster. You may not have phone or internet access, and the instructions to the public will come through the old-fashioned radio. So that's probably a good idea. Make sure you have candles, flashlights, batteries for the flashlights. There's wind-up flashlights you can get. You want to make sure that you have all of your phones charged. If there's any advance notice of a major outage or anything like that. If you have Mophis or whatever the battery charger thingies are for your phone, don't leave them all dead. Periodically charge them so that in an emergency you've got them. Also, if you need to leave your home, suddenly you've got those charged. You can just grab them if you need to. Even if you're not at all a repair person, you need to have some basic tools in your home. You might need to do some repairs that you wouldn't otherwise do. If a window gets broken or something like that. Duct tape is great. It also can be used to seal windows and doors if there's a chemical issue outside. I think I already talked about having a fire extinguisher, a carbon monoxide detector, basic first aid kit, those kinds of things. You need all that stuff in your home if you were stuck there for a period of time. You may want to have some cash as well. Once you're ready to leave, you don't know what you will be encountering, and you may not be able to get money electronically and things like that. So it's a good idea to have some cash hidden in your home. Again, not a lot. I don't think I don't know what you need, but I would say don't be saving thousands of dollars. 50 to 100 bucks is probably much more than you need. And at any given time, I usually have money hidden in my house just because sometimes you can't go to the bank on a regular day. Also, parents of young children need to have money in the home for the tooth fairy. You can buy prepackaged emergency kits. There's lots of places that sell them. I don't think now is the time to be panic buying these items, but you can buy them after the fact, or you can just make your own, or like I do, I kind of have the stuff in my home. If you camp, you probably are pretty prepared already. And anyone who lived through the ice storm sort of knows what it was like to be in your home and not have any power for a period of time. So just think about all those things and what you might need. If you have pets, make sure you have enough pet food. So don't let your pet food be empty all the time. If you have children, make sure you got enough diapers or formula or whatever it is they need. If you have other people with special needs in your home, just make sure that you have whatever they might need for a couple of days at least. Authorities recommend that you have a phone that isn't battery powered. I do think in Canada, if you plug a phone into your phone jack, even if you don't have phone service, you can use 911, but I don't think you can use it for any other purpose. So I don't know how much utility that would have, although you would need to call 911 if cell phone service is down. So that's something to consider. If you do have phone service in your home, then certainly something other than just a portable phone is a good idea, because your portable phone is going to die if there's no power. I think those are all the things for if you're stuck in your home. A lot of what I said earlier applies, and a lot of the information that's available from other sources will tell you what you need to have in your emergency kit and what you need to do if you're stuck in your home in the event of an emergency. But generally about 72 hours of food, water, and supplies is what you would need, and all the other things to make sure that you can access the radio, that you have some light if there's no power. Think about possible extra heat and cooking options. I know in the ice storm, a lot of people were using their barbecues and their camp stoves. So just think about all of those things and really what you would need. And it's thinking, this is the worst case scenario. These things may never happen, but if they ever do happen, you're going to be really glad that you thought about it and thought about what you would need and sort of got ready, because those instincts will they'll just come and your instincts will take over. And I know from having the fire and all those kinds of things, I'm not really good at dealing with my own emergencies usually. But when the fire happened, I don't know what happened. I took over, and I sort of delegated things. I knew what needed to be done. Actually, going back to the fire situation, especially if you live in a rural area like I did at the time, you need to figure out whether or not emergency services can find your house. So I know the first two people that came to help us when they saw the fire, I directed them to different parts of our road to direct the fire services to us, because it was volunteer firefighters coming and we lived in the middle of nowhere. Make sure that you have that your number on your home is well visible, so that emergency services can see it. Provide directions when you call 911 if you need to, that kind of thing. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is a car accident. So I'm not going to talk about if you are seriously injured in a car accident. I'll review that whenever I talk about major illness. Just basically, you need to be prepared. So your insurance company probably has a checklist of what you need to do if you're in a minor enough accident. So ask them for sure what they want you to do, what they want you to have. Have all of your information, your insurance information. Who do you need to call? What do you need to do? Make sure that you have pen and paper in your glove box in case you need to write things down. Write down the other driver's insurance information. You can also take pictures with your phone. What is it that you need to do? Who is it that you need to call? If you are somewhere away from home and the car is totaled, how are you getting home? What's going to happen? You might need, again, access to credit in these situations, even though you do have insurance coverage. I have been in a couple of accidents. Thankfully, my insurance company, my insurers are friends of mine. I was able to call when the fire happened and when the accidents happened, I was able to call my insurance company on my cell phone within minutes and say, what do I need to do? This is happening. It was very calming for me to be able to do that. Not every insurance company can offer that to you, but if you call them ahead of time and say, what is it that I need to do? Who do I need to call? And again, save that information in your emergency file. Trust me, you'll feel much better knowing what to do if this happens, because even minor car accidents are really stressful, especially if they happen away from home. I mean, you're always away from home, but if you're in another city, it's not exactly fun. And you also need to think about if you have to go to the hospital, even if it's minor injuries, what needs to happen? Is there childcare? Is there a child that needs to be picked up from school? Is all those kinds of things? Think about what is going on there. The next thing I want to talk about is you're out of the country and you lose your identification. So my mother is watching this. She actually had her wallet stolen when she was out of the country several years ago. For those of you who don't know my mother, she's probably the most organized person in the world. So it really didn't affect her. It was slightly stressful, but she had copies of all of her identification in the safe in the room. She had copies of all of her credit cards in the safe in the room. So they were at supper. It was stolen while she was at supper. They went back to the hotel. She called all of her credit card companies right away. And I don't even think that it had been used, but I know people that have had this happen before. They've called within 15 minutes and there's already been an attempt to use the card. So make sure that you have all that information. Everything in your wallet, really, you should have a copy of everything in your wallet somewhere. Have it in the cloud if you're more comfortable with that. When I travel, I usually have our identification copied and I leave it in the safe at the hotel in case we lose our identification. And I occasionally have like one credit card available to me, or I have left a credit card with my staff at the office. So that they can do things for me if I lose all of my identification and my credit cards. The other thing is it's happening now. There is a crisis. People who are out of the country need to come back. When you go away, when you leave Canada, you should register as a Canadian abroad. They will ask you your travel information. They will ask you where you're staying. They will ask contact information of where you're staying. They will ask for an emergency contact in Canada. I've been doing this all of my adult life when I travel, and I can't believe that people don't know that you should be doing this and that you can do this. If there's some sort of major crisis, the Canadian government can't help you if they don't know where you are. So certainly register as a Canadian abroad. And it's on the travel.gc.ca, I think is where you do it. I can post the link later. The other thing is when you're traveling, if on that same site, there's a bunch of information. You can look at the place where you're going and find the nearest consulate or embassy and the contact information for that. And I think there's a card you can print out. For most countries, there's an emergency card you can print out in your wallet that says basically how to access all these places. It also will say how to call emergency numbers in the country where you are going to, because it's not 911 everywhere. So certainly that is something that everybody should be doing anytime they travel. And you need to have copies of your ID. I think you should have a copy of your ID with you in your safe because that's how you'll prove that you're a Canadian citizen if your ID is stolen. And in some countries, you actually need to have your ID on you at all times. So you can't leave your original ID and the copies of the ID in the safe. You need to have one piece of ID on you at all times. For myself, I bring notarized copies of our identification because that is the same as the original in the event that everything is stolen. I know not everybody can do that. If you are going out of the country, we can do that for you at my office. The other thing is you need your insurance information when you travel. So what is covered by your travel insurance? What do you need to do? Who do you need to contact? You need to have all that information on you, but you also should have that information in your emergency kit because you need to assume that your wallet and everything might be gone. So what is covered through your credit card? What is covered through your travel insurance? What is covered through your health insurance? What is covered through your employer? Make sure there's no gaps in coverage. And you may need to have an actual copy of your policy available to you, and that should be in your emergency kit. So I do that every time I travel. I make sure that my insurance is up to date. I know what is covered by who and what to do. If you are coming back to Canada and you've lost your identification, you're definitely going to need consular assistance. So this is where registering as a Canadian abroad and knowing the consulate information is going to help you. The other thing is if you are abroad and you lose your identification and there's a delay in you returning home, having a power of attorney in this situation might be something that will be helpful. If you've executed a power of attorney and nominated someone who's in Canada, they might be able to deal with your finances and things like that because you might not have an ability to access your money even to get you home. So it's something to consider whether or not you need to have a power of attorney and have someone in Canada who would be able to act for you. So if you're away with your spouse is the person you've appointed, have an alternate to your spouse. And if that alternate's in Canada, you can invoke the power of attorney even though you're fully capable and they can do some things for you to get you home. The other thing is you're traveling and you become ill or a member of your party becomes ill or someone dies. So we have had a family member die out of the country. It was quite a long time ago, but I've since had clients die out of the country. This is like pretty much the worst thing you could ever imagine happening to someone. out of the country or becoming ill out of the country. So everything I said about traveling applies. You need to register, you need to have all the information, you need to have the insurance information. The insurance information is going to be really important here because depending on where you are, it's going to be really expensive to get care. And also having access to credit is going to become really important in these instances. If someone is ill or has passed away, you're going to need copies of the will and the power of attorney. You'll need consulate assistance, and you need to have an emergency plan. If you and your partner are traveling and one of you dies, the other one is going to need someone to come and help them probably. Who's that person going to be? And how quickly can you get them to where you are? Especially if you travel for long periods of time. I know a lot of my clients travel to Arizona and Florida, and a lot of them now are traveling to places like Portugal for the winter and South America. Especially if you travel for long periods of time, you really need to have a plan about what will happen. Can everybody see me? I think I might have just lost you. I hope not. Also, people don't know this. If you have a prepaid funeral, sometimes you can get, as part of your prepaid funeral, assistance if you die out of the country. It's not very much. I can't remember how much it is. Like the dollar value of it is ridiculously low compared to how much it costs you to deal with all these things. So they'll pay the cost of a support person sometimes, of getting your remains home. There's a bunch of things they'll deal with, so that's something to consider. Not that everybody wants to consider getting a prepaid funeral now, but if you travel a lot, it maybe is a good idea. I was shocked to find what they cover and how much assistance they do offer, because really that's one of the most tragic situations possible is someone dying out of the country. So the last two things is you or a loved one becomes ill or a loved one dies. So becoming ill suddenly, so stroke, accident, anything like that, you don't know what's going to happen. You're going to need probably a power of attorney. If you're not capable, or if you're not able to do the things that you would normally do to manage your finances, to manage your own care, you need to have someone appointed as your attorney for personal care and as your attorney for property. That person needs to know some of your medical information, or they need to know how to get to your medical information. Again, assume that you can't contact the pharmacy. You may not be able to contact the family doctor. Is all of that information available? I know now a lot of the health information is being shared electronically through a variety of sources, but you may need to ask your doctor how much is shared and how much would be available and what information does the people that I'm appointing need. Things like blood type. Blood type is something that will be needed almost immediately if there's an accident and there's a emergency surgery is needed. Medical history, so some of them, if you have any major illnesses, major diseases, anything like that, in an emergency, they need to know that right away. What medications you're on. If you've ever taken anyone to the hospital who is not able to communicate themselves, they're going to ask you what medications is this person on, and you really should know it. Again, the pharmacy may not be able to fax it over. So the people that are acting for you need to know how to get that information, or they just need to have the information. Also, who are your primary care doctors and any specialists that you see. The other thing I want to mention, which is not really fun to think about, but if you need emergency medical care right now, or even if you are a mom who is going to be delivering your baby soon, given everything that's going on, you might not be able to have a support person with you. You might be alone. I was pregnant whenever SARS was happening in Ontario. I needed emergency medical care because I had a serious gastro illness, and I was having pain, and they were worried that I was losing the baby, and I was alone.